Nigel Farage has found himself in hot water once more after stating that British Muslims act like a fifth column in the country. They don't share our values and many of them dislike us. Cue The Guardian and the Labour MPs with their ostentatious outrage to virtue signal to their base, but as usual they're ignoring the big question. Is he right in what he's saying?
Are you sure you want to make the blanket accusation that you've just made that Muslims are somehow less patriotic than other British people?
Our hatred for the non-Muslims doesn't stop us from being unjust to them. My argument would be it also doesn't stop us from coexisting with them.
Because those people on those demonstrations are British.
Did you watch the recent elections that took place up and down the country?
We don't know that, and we don't know they support Hamas.
We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Would you like to revisit what you said at all?
Let's be clear. There is a growing population of people in this country, a lot of them very young, who have recently been voting for and electing candidates, right, up and down the country, in inner cities, who stand for a set of values that are completely, not only don't subscribe to our values, but in many cases are totally against our values.
We show our disassociation from them, that we are not part of you, we don't believe what you believe. We have there's animosity and hatred towards them because of their own kufr. This is our relationship with them, and we don't keep friendship with them. We don't just socialize with the kuffar. We don't just share our food with the kuffar. Rather, our relationship with the kuffar is that we give them dawah. So because we have to treat the Muslims in one way and the kuffar in another way. Even, some of the scholars describe that even in Darul Islam, that the Muslim house has to be higher. The Muslim house has to be higher than the kuffar. You see, so this thing is that Islam is superior and the Muslim is higher.
The reality is Farage isn't saying anything controversial or incorrect here. It's just that he's upset the liberal utopian metropolitan types who live in a bubble of their own imagination. This bubble of delusion tells them how they'd like the world to be rather than how the world actually is. It informs them of the neo-progressive ideology that anyone who's not white, straight, cisgendered, Christian and male is good, especially if they're a minority group. What they believe and how they act is irrelevant to whether they're a minority or not. Now, a detractor could say, yes, but all those clips you used interspersed with Farage's interview are just from radical Muslims. There's not many of those. Yet again, that's just more woke ideology. They start with the assumption that you're evil and Muslims are good and then work back from that, whereas the reality is there are plenty of clips you could choose on a daily basis of British Muslims detracting Britain and saying very extreme things that if someone on the right said, they'd be seen as to the right of Hitler. To prove the point, here's the quote-unquote left-wing and progressive journalist Mehdi Hassan calling non-Muslims animals.
We know that keeping the moral high ground is key. Once we lose the moral high ground, we are no different from the rest of the non-Muslims, from the rest of those human beings who live their lives as animals.
To give you some context, that would be like left-wing lovey moron Owen Jones being privately recorded calling Muslims animals. Can you imagine what would lead him to do that and the response if he did? In conclusion, I'm sure not every British Muslim is bad or an extremist. There are good people in every group. However, there is a large chunk of that group who are hostile to British values. In a sane society, it would be quite simple and straightforward to point that out. Yet our society has been overrun by woke ideology, which states that you must always view the minority group as the victim, no matter what they do. And in fact, if that same minority group acts out all the worse and becomes more aggressive, more violent, more against the values of the home country, it's a test for progressive people to show off their progressive virtue and still support that community. In fact, support it all the more to show their supposed moral qualities to other progressives. The reality is that Islam is not a helpless little minority religion like the progressive state, but a rival civilization to Christendom and always has been. It's only the Western progressives that have forgotten that. It doesn't mean all Muslims are bad and I hate them simply because they exist, but it does mean that we should be wary of their different set of values and want to maintain our own values into the future. However, given the modern liberal elite are so detached from reality and so detached from their own history and culture, we should leave them to it in the major conurbations in their Muslim wonderland and seek to continue British values in the Shire long into the future. These are just my thoughts. However, do let me know what you think down below and do consider subscribing to the channel.